Good morning. I think we can finally start. We had some technical issues again this week, but everything is solved and we can move on. I am Ignacio Borrego, and I am especially happy today to be able to introduce Jacob van Rijs and his lecture. I would like to welcome all of you to these November talks that are happening at ETSAM. This lecture series is organized by the Master in Collective Housing, and thanks to Chema Lapuerta that is here, everything is possible, and I'm very thankful to him that I am invited to do these introductions. We also have to thank the Stoll Stiftung, the Swiss foundation that is promoting these lectures throughout Europe. This event is happening in parallel every week in November in several cities, 6. It's Ghent, Paris, Prague, Stuttgart, Vienna, Venice, and since this year, Madrid. And we hope that we can continue in the next editions. We have already received Anne Lacaton last week, and today we continue the lecture series with Jacob van Rijs. And I want to announce that we will have in the next week, so next week we will have Herboje Niric from Zagreb, and the last week of November we will have Dietmar Evele, the Austrian architect from Baumschlager Evele Architekten. We are very thankful to this opportunity to have those big names among us. I want to say before starting that we will have the chance to make some questions, so just keep in mind that this opportunity exists, so that at the end we can bomb Jacob with a lot of questions. MBRDV was founded in 1991. It's the acronym of the 3 founders, so it's Winnie Maas, Jacob van Rijs, and Nathalie de Vries. And this, at that moment, a young office had already some professional experience. So Jacob was working in Barcelona, for example, and the 3 of them were working at the Office for Metropolitan Architecture. This moment in the late 80s, early 90s was quite relevant, because there it was an amazing concentration of big, of future relevant and famous architects. Some of them Spanish architects that you all know. I know Jacob van Rijs already for 25 years, and when I first met him, he was only 35, but he had already built the Bosoko housing, the headquarters for the broadcasting company VPRO, and also the Dutch pavilion in Hanover. And the Silo Dam was under construction. It was almost finished. So this young office with already 40 people was becoming very important in the architectural scene, to the point that the El Croquis did a monography that included the projects from 93 to 97, and that was a big impact, a big influence for my generation. We were also very impressed by the amount of books that they were producing. It was like a non-stop book factory. For example, the Pharmax, and later on the KM 3 and Costa Iberica, and many other books. Today, MBRDV has more than 300 employees, has offices all around the world from Shanghai to New York, and are doing more than 500 projects, and they have received more than 250 awards and nominations, so it's quite a further step on this evolution. And they keep on building iconic buildings. finally, I mean, it was already time later, but they were also able to build in their hometown in Rotterdam important buildings like the Markt Hall and later the Pot that have brought this international office also back to the city. And right now they are developing a big tower that Jakob told me that he's going to talk about it later. I think that this meteoric trajectory is based, in my opinion, in an optimistic attitude that excites the users and also the clients. They have a fascination for radicality, and they manage to create remarkable architecture. I think they hardly accept easily, so they easily do not accept conventions, and that makes this office innovative in the building scale, but also in the urban scale. I had the idea of bringing here a lot of stories that I know from him to express my admiration for him, but I don't dare to do it in this audience. So I just want to share that in these years, I have learned with him that everything is possible. The fact that something has not happened yet or no one has done it, it doesn't mean that it's not possible. And I'm very thankful to him for that. So thank you, Jakob, for being with us today. The stage is yours.
All right, nice to see so many people here. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Chema and the team of Massive Collective Housing for the kind of nice continuation of visits. I think it's very nice to have friends here. And it's also a nice opportunity for me to speak about housing, which is, of course, super important. It's never unimportant. And yeah, for me, as Ignacio mentioned, the link with Spain was always a good one. It started with Elko Keys that sort of visited our office kind of when they were passing by OMA. They thought, oh, well, maybe we can have a look at MVRDV. And it was a really interesting experience where we had to leave the office at a certain moment and say, well, you can give us the key, we just stay here all night and then we will see which project we like to include in the monography. Yeah. Anyway, but that was then. I like to show, of course, the topic of the series is a little bit a link to the housing crisis. I think that everybody knows immediately what it means, and it's sort of a multi-headed monster. So I will, of course, show project, but I'd also like to do a little bit of an introduction and what would that mean for architects. So housing matters. It's the title of the talk, and it matters to all of us, but it is a matter. It is stuff, and that you can build a city with houses. You can make so it's an important instrument for us. And yeah, of course we all live, and the question is then how and where and how do we solve this? As architects, we don't have the power to solve it all, but it's important to be aware of the context and what's going on. So a little bit on the housing crisis. You can talk a whole day about this, and in the end, probably you don't have the solution, or there's many ideas, and everybody knows something. But what was interesting, I'd like to show you a little bit about the Dutch context. This is a picture you see. There's a bit of a battle, like people trying to find a place, people that have a place, and in the Netherlands it's a very much an insider-outsider problem. So many people that have a rental contract or have a house, own a house, they're perfectly fine, they have nice mortgages, they have a rent protection system, and everything is fine. But when you're not in it, so to say, when you have to find something, you want to buy something super difficult. And so there's this sort of, the majority is fine, but a lot of people have a big problem. Last month we had elections in the Netherlands. It was, maybe you've heard about this weird guy, Geert Wilders. He was the biggest party, sort of populism started 20 years ago in Europe in Rotterdam actually. So they grew and grew and grew. They were in the government and it didn't work out, luckily. So now we have a new party, not a new party, but another party won. So it looks promising, but the interesting stuff was that from left to right, for very different people, everybody was agreeing on one topic, that was the housing crisis, that this is super important. Of course, they did not agree on how to solve it, but nobody had the answer. But there was not much debate about the relevance of it. So that was, in a way, you can say great, but on the other hand, it's also shows it worrying, because we're unable to fix it. And well, it's a long story, but it comes. It basically, you could say, textbook. If you can, this is from an article in the Guardian. What happened? That basically the population grew faster than the statistics expected, and also the number of people in per house shrunk. So the family size is less. So that means you need double more houses. So not even if the population didn't shrink, you would need more houses. But there were more people coming, and migrants, refugees, but also expats, many students like to study in the Netherlands. So this was kind of putting a big pressure on the market. And that led to but on the other hand, there's a lot of regulations, and that this we like to do to control everything. It's good for the environment. It's all kind of regulation about the energy, or about the scale of the houses, or like how it looks. There's a beauty committee. It's all quite good, and everybody thinks that it's important, but it means it is really tough and slow, and the system is sometimes killing it. So this you can find up all kind of stories of people that are really dissatisfied and somehow have really a hard time coming to the Netherlands, where they say, well, it's easy, a nice place, but it turned out to be really tough and not so easy. And not so great. Yeah, so some statistics. I have a little bit of a guilty pleasure for statistics. So this is a list of the prices for rental. You see that for apartment per room and per studio. And you see there somewhere in the middle Madrid as well. And you see Rotterdam. And Paris is on top, and Amsterdam somewhere there as well. So Amsterdam is the capital of, the winner of the most expensive price per room. This is per square meter per month. So imagine if you have a room of 10 square meters, that would be 800 euros. And you only have a room. Not for everyone, but for somebody who wants to come in. So if you want to do your master or your whatever in Delft, well, Delft's not so bad, but Amsterdam, pretty tough. And here you see Madrid, also not that good. Probably you know better than me. And there's Rotterdam, which is kind of similar. But it means that it's like insane, that these prices per square meter per month, that is just hardly affordable. But hey, some construction work going on. But what is, so there's another top topic, wow, it's really loud. It's going well with the construction market in Madrid. Well, the housing crisis is not just the housing crisis, but it also fuels the discussion on the economy and the politics. So, for instance, our right-wing politicians, they use it to say, you cannot find a house because there's refugees coming to Holland, and they get a preference, and the normal people have to wait longer. So other people have other stories, but this is a very powerful argument. You say, hey, my kid cannot find a room or a flat, and you look at this, these guys come in and they pass the waiting list, and they have it. So, of course, that happens, but it's just a small portion. So if you don't fix it, this whole thing has an incredible impact, you could say, that might be worse than we expect. So that's why it's good that we have places like this, where you have the Master of Collective Housing, that let's study how we can do this. What can we do about it? I like to, this is getting really loud. There's upstairs. Good. Well, it's not a new, oh my God, this is annoying. It's a little bit too loud, sorry for this. Okay, get distracted by it. But this issue of how to live together, I think it's nice to look at some successful examples. And one that I like to start with is a very old one, so somehow it's not that complicated, you could say. It's already existing for 500 years, and it's in Augsburg, and it's called the Fuggerei. I didn't know about it, but we were invited to make something for them and to make a pavilion for their anniversary a few years ago. But it's the oldest running social housing project in the world. There maybe have been older ones, but they never survived. But so the Fuggerei is still up and running, and that is really incredible if you think about it. What happened in these 500 years? The buildings are not 100% original, but let's say the structure is. There were some wars and things got renovated, but it's super interesting to look at it. So you see here an overview of the Fuggerei in Augsburg. Here's the plan. So it's a little like a village in the city, urban village. And you can see in old maps that it used to be there, really, really old. And you see that there's an irregular, organic, typical medieval city, and then there's suddenly this almost modernistic Siedlung in the middle. It was founded by Jacob Fugger, called the rich guy, sort of the Bill Gates from the medieval times. He didn't have any children, but he was very devout Catholic, and so he said, okay, I want to invest in leave a legacy with the Fuggerei, and it had to. The rent should stay the same. It should be 1 mark, which is now like 80 euro cents. So that doesn't change. It's still the same, 500 years long. It's for people that need a bit of help to make a step in life, and you have to be from Augsburg, Catholic, and you have to pray 3 times a day for him. So these were the rules, and they were sort of. So it was interesting to that verse. It was not meant for sale. It had to keep like for eternity. So that was in the. So the successors were not able to do anything with it, you could say. And now it houses about 150 people, with different some elderly people, to mix some younger. And they all have this effect. They need a little extra. Some people stay there a bit longer, but on average they live there 7 years, and then they either learn something or they get some help, and it's remarkably great, you could say. So this is the atmosphere. There's the mailman, and well, we were asked to look at it and make a pavilion, but we also were asked to find out if we could repeat it. And what would be the ingredients? So we tried to crack the code, like the Da Vinci Code. We tried to crack the Fuggerei Code. So this was like, what is the magic? So it deals with simple and local materials. It kind of an aspect of craftsmanship. It sort of blends in the surrounding. It's not radical in that respect. It's recognizable if you know it. It has a kind of nice green atmosphere. It has these collective spaces. It has nice little details like this, the door, the bell. And the story is that if you get a bit older and you cannot see so well, and there was no electric light, you could feel the shape of your bell and think, oh yeah, this is my house. Other people say if you drink a lot of beer, you come home late, and you can also still find your house. But that's the story. All the houses have a different bell. Yeah, here you can see some more elements. So it is linked to the community of Augsburg, but it also is a separate entity. So we made a book. You mentioned about books. So this is a book we did on the Fuggerei of the future. Could we imagine more of them, and what is then the recipe? So we looked at what are the key values. Like it's about giving a protection element, be sustainable, humanistic aspects. People can be. Live longer independently with a certain dignity. It has social aspects, and it has a spiritual aspect. Of course, the religion is still around. And these topics we kind of linked into. We kind of looked with an eye, like, okay, how does it work? What are the small things? It's like collective spaces. It's about having accessible, a walkable city, and this kind of collective spaces where you can do stuff. It's like front doors that are recognizable. It has this spirituality room, this little chapel. And we took that into a series of numbers, so we decomposed it basically, how much square meters of this, how much square meters of this, and made a model out of it, and we can sort of abstracted that model so that you could basically put it in any shape, in any configuration. So this are the ingredients. You see in orange the houses, and you have this workshop in purple, there's chapel and the cafe, and there's the gardens, etc. So, and then you can basically rebuild it in any other way. Yeah? So these are some examples of this. It can be like a small suburban context or a more modernistic look. It doesn't mean that it has to look in the same way as in Germany. Or it can be a building in the city, so just a different vertical configuration. It can be an apartment block with a collective roof, with a workshop and maybe a little spiritual yoga space. So it could be a contemporary version of the Fuggerei. But what is important is that it is a curated community. So it's not a waiting list and then if you're a certain moment you're there, you get in. They kind of look, it's a bit like you have a student house and you live with 10 people. And then you can decide who's the new person that joins the club, instead of that somebody is just entering. And this is, I think, is probably an important part. And of course, you have to find a balance for people that are never selected for these student houses or so. But they look for which is a good match, and not everybody get in. This is maybe part of this recipe. So, etc. You could organize this in a different way. And this we showed in a pavilion in the city. This was a wooden version of a Fuggerei house with them bending up and looking out to the future. It was also kind of a small attraction that was there for 6 weeks on the market square, where there would be debates and stories, but also like people having a good time to make the Fuggerei more known. And well, big people came there, like Ursula from Europe, who had some links with it. And there was also an introduction to the Fuggerei game, so we made a small building box, you could say, where you can make your own little Fuggerei. And there was also a digital version where you could get a score, like how much does it match with the real Fuggerei? Is it a good one? Is it so that was fun to do, and it also made it kind of interestingly accessible for other people that normally would not go there. Yeah, so and you could say what is the purpose and what is the attraction of shared living? Then that means. Yeah, it's not new. It's there been before, maybe forever, and we always somehow like to live in certain communities, and that means how to combine certain functions. There has been some examples in the 70s where you have this more, let's say, almost like hippie-style communities, but currently I think it's more and more relevant again to organize in an efficient way and maybe more affordable way to live together. You could say maybe I make my apartment a bit smaller if I have an additional room or other functions that I can share with some other neighbors, and that in the end could be cheaper and more fun. So we did a little booklet about about collective housing and collective living, co-living, showing some famous examples that you probably know. The one in Rotterdam is a nice recommendation, Justus van Effes block, where they have a vertical street, of course the ones in Vienna, etc. And you have beautiful examples that are still being built today. But then, of course, what could it solve? The challenges are clear. The costs, the growth of the city, climate adaptation, loneliness, people are sometimes living too much alone. The community can be more stronger, and you have a lot of single households that somehow kind of put the pressure on the market. So this is an interesting cocktail, difficult to organize. So you can organize them in 3 groups: the environmental issues, the social issues, and the issue of governance, how to organize it. And the last one is, I think, maybe if that doesn't work, it doesn't happen. So we gave a few overviews of like what it could be like. That doesn't have to be big or small. It can be in different contexts. It can be a modest amount of co-living or a super intense amount of co-living. You could have a nice collective roof deck or a sort of living room, depending on the size of the project. You can say I sometimes we only have a small part, or we share a lot. And the building can be smaller, and the building can be larger. So you have a private home, is almost like the family, or the mini unit is hardly any collective, you could say, but it can be a small community, like a shared flat. The building can be one community, or it can be a building that is offering something to the neighborhood. So, for this you can say, well, we have certain ingredients that we can use, and we made an overview of potential spaces that you could be sharing, and you don't need them all, but if your building the community is larger, you can collect a lot of them. It can be for certain activities, it can be for dogs, it can be for bicycles, it can be spaces where you meet your neighbors, it can be for gardening, it can be for for sort of spiritual healing sessions, or for playgrounds, for working, etc. And this could be, this is a kind of a method to maybe to discuss this with people, or maybe with your client or your neighbors. So this was, in a way, you could say, a toolbox for collective housing. And this was organized in a little book that we did. I'll go quickly because I like to show a lot. What it could be, how you could organize this. Some inspirational ideas, offering spaces for the city, or make the roof, activate the roof. That we published in a small booklet that's now sold out, but we decided last month that it would be better not to print it again, but to offer it for free on our website. So you could have a look at the website and you could download the booklet. A little bit of a recap. Ignacio mentioned already that our first building was a housing project for elderly people. It was for a housing corporation. In 93 we got the commission, 97 it was built. But these kind of commissions are not possible anymore because housing corporations have a different function. They don't offer direct commissions with 100% the social housing anymore. It is much more organized in a kind of mixture where you have, let's say, market-funded houses, developers, the city, housing corporations. Everybody has to work together to make a mix of projects, because I think when you have 100% social housing, it might also cause trouble in the long run. So it's better to mix it up with all kind of things instead of have monofunctional social housing. So, but we worked on the collective part. In this case, it dealt with the balcony zone. We gave every apartment a different balcony, shifted this around so that the neighbors could diagonally see each other more. And there was not a collective living room or something like this, but they do. They can see and wave to each other, and this was one part. And it was also a nice place to hang out. This is the project. You might have seen it. In the Silodam, it's much more. It's a collective, you could say. It was a mixture of social housing and free market houses. And we developed this whole collection of different typologies stacked on top of each other, offering the big plaza to the water for the neighbors, for everybody accessible, but also smaller spaces in the building that would be for the residents only. And these residents, they made a book this was already a while ago, when the building was 10 years old. It was their own initiative, and it was really nice to see how they used the building. So these were some pictures from meetings in the collective deck with a viewing platform in the building. But what's also much more interesting for us to find out that wasted space was actually turned out to be very valuable. So that is not everything is perfectly used and planned, but that you say if you don't plant, you offer the residents a way to use it in their own way, in their own ideas. So what they did, this was a little corridor for the electricity meters. It was a corridor that was not really essential for circulation, but we had to make it because the electricity meters needed to be accessible. It turned to be a library or a fitness room. So these spaces were decided, the residents decided, oh, let's organize some things for ourselves, and this is the result of it. So that was nice to see. So wasted space is cool. In the Parkrand, we try to do this collective spaces by making large buildings with interior spaces that can be sort of private collective garden. This is the project in Amsterdam that we did. Also a mixture of social housing, and of course here in Madrid, Mirador and Celosía are buildings that were started as social housing for sale, but of course now after 10 or more years, probably most of them have been sold and are not social housing anymore. So this is it's a bit sad, you could say. The difference with this Bozoko is that it's still social housing after 30 years. Okay, I go quick. The first part of the lecture about the project I'd like to show is about ensembles, about neighborhoods, which I think is a very nice way of building a community. So that is not one building, but a collection of buildings, kind of an urban ensemble. And I'd like to show a few of them. One is in Palma. We finished this a few years ago. I worked together with Guillermo Reines, he's a former collaborator. He's from Palma, and got us in touch with the Fluxa family, who is well known for the Camper shoes. And they like to make sort of in a similar atmosphere, this kind of Mediterranean living in Palma, a neighborhood that they know very well. And can you combine shoes with architecture? This is what we asked ourselves. In a way, we felt a certain attraction to each other. And then the question was, okay, how to live in this attractive place, but this is a little bit run down. Its neighborhood is called Gomila. It used to be a beautiful place with many villas, people traveling to the Caribbean. There was a small resort, you could say. It was not part of the city. It became connected to the city. It became a place where you would go in the evening. Kind of the first entertainment districts appeared, and it was a beautiful little neighborhood square where a lot of nightlife was happening. With even Jimi Hendrix passing by, they still talk about that. And you could see the development of the let's say economy and the impact of the tourism. The city grew, the buildings kind of towards the river, the Paseo Maritime came, hotels were built, so you still had the villas and you have the hotels, and in between it became a little bit complicated. So here it's a beautiful section, you have the green, then the villa part, the Juan Miró Boulevard, and the Paseo. So this is a beautiful, interesting section to walk. You can really walk from the mountain to the sea. And what was nice for us to look at it, because it has this really weird and wild collection of buildings. There seemed to be no logic, but it had a very vibrant atmosphere. There are new planning regulations in Palma. That means that everything that you want to build new has to be 2.5 story high. So that is, I think it was a good idea to reduce the density a bit. But it also meant that everything that is there and higher is certainly very valuable, because if you take it away, you cannot build it back. So transformations became important for this. So what was happening, that certain plots were available, and the family bought them, and we were asked to develop some ideas for that. So these were 7 plots. Some of them are transformations, some of them are new, depending on the context. So what we did, we divided and made a kind of collection, like a collection of shoes, a collection of buildings, different apartment styles. They're all for rent. It's not the cheapest apartment, but it is in a way offering a new typologies to the city and revitalizing the neighborhood. In the center, you see this white block, which is a former small shopping center. So our recipe was quite simple. We didn't know how many plots would join. So we started with 5 and became 7, and now it's actually 9. So we said, okay, every plot should have a different color, a different material, and a different typology, and also a different roof. So that was that we kind of agreed upon. Like, yeah, that's good. Not knowing the consequences in the end, but it's a very strong and simple idea, and this led to this collection of quite wide range of apartment styles. Some are very experimental, others are more normal. Some are in old buildings, some are completely new, and we gave every plot, typology, every building a name, a kind of nickname. Also how to differentiate from each other. The new ones you could make more strange, you could say, because you can start from scratch. The transformations, it's a little bit limited. You could but on the other hand, they offer all kind of other opportunities. So here you see, I'm not going to explain them all in detail, but this was the centerpiece, a building that was really beautifully, almost like streamlined from the 30s, I think, even or a bit younger, and it was this beautiful, neighborhood atmosphere that we all kind of like, oh, this is cool. Maybe we should try to get something back like this. But it was, when we started, it looked like this. It was not the coziest place in the city. It was a bit dangerous at night. And of course, when you see this, you can understand a bit why. But we kept the structure. Most of the tenants could go out. Some people actually owned an apartment on top, and they didn't want to leave, so they still live there, and then we had to work around them. But they in the end have a good deal, I think. The ground floor became a cafe and an office, and some of the apartments have large outdoor decks. And you see as well this cassettes. This is quite an interesting structure that was there. It was used on one of the first occasions. This mushroom deck floor. And so it's, in a way, we brought it back to the original atmosphere, in the sense that it has this collective space where you can hang out, people can work, and we added a staircase, a new staircase that is a shortcut to the street on top, so it's also a little passage. At night it's closed off, but during the day it's open. Here you see that, and our interventions are quite strategic, but not that much. Next door you have the red houses. The building that used to be there was red. That was why we said, okay, let's use this as an inspiration, follow the new planning regulations, but also optimize the space. That led to a building that is occupying almost all the plot, and to create as many front doors. That was something that we found important, that you have a front door. That meant that some of the apartments became kind of banana shaped, and other ones are kind of a vertical, a tiny tower. We introduced this kind of grain that was there in the facade, this rough plinths, and we collected a series of colors that were linked to this. And this idea of that meant that the roof became important, that every house has a roof deck, every house has a front door, and there's also a little basement to optimize the space. So in summer when it's hot, the basement is a nice cooling effect, and it also works as a cooler for the house. It's a passive cooling. So that's the story. And these are houses for rent, so the kitchens are red, and you cannot change the kitchen, so that's why they are like this. But it also gives a certain atmosphere. This is that one, and the other one is, we call it the fabricasas, the more like a small, inspired on the small factories that used to be there in the area. And these are also houses with an own front door. They had to be more or less the same size, and the plot was like a triangle, so that meant that the deeper the plot, the more narrow the house. And again, the more square, the squarish one was at the corner. It was inspired by this shoe. So there was no discussion anymore about the shape. But it was also a super interesting exercise. There were some discussions about, can you make a house of 2.20 meters wide? And there were, we kind of got the benefit of the doubt. And in the end, it turned out to be a really nice house. So it was complicated to get everything organized. You see the turning circles for the wheelchairs. It was you see this. I love this plan because you see a lot of staircases. It's not the most efficient house, but it is a fun apartment. With everybody has an outdoor space. Some on the roof. The more narrow ones have a loggia or a balcony. The two roads on the side are split in different heights. And we made also this idea of similar as the other plot, that the colors change depending on the position of the house. So the closer to the white block in the middle, the lighter it is, and the more further away, the darker. So these tiles were then developed with Huguette from Mallorca. They made a really nice sampling, and here you see the results. What is nice to show it is, in a way, it offers a typology where people can live together that are not always a family. So it's a way you could have there's three people living independently together with their own bathroom, and they share their living room and workspace. It can also be a family with 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, or 2 for the children and 1 for the parents. You could sublet one unit because it has 2 entrances. So there are all kind of ways to use this apartment. And you have this nice roof deck. This is on top, and then you go down to the kitchen. And every bedroom this is inspired by the camper hotels. Has the bathroom on the facade, and then you have your little kind of hotel room in your house. That was the concept for that one. So ultimately, so we're at the moment developing 2 more, but these will be transformation projects. This one was also added. It was a supermarket that was there. The supermarket owner knew everybody from the neighborhood. So they made a deal with him that you could stay and have the reasonable rent. You don't have to leave, but we only want to do one thing. You have to change your signage, and then you can continue operating your supermarket. So that deal was accepted, and you can still have the supermarket with a part of the graphic corporate identity from the neighborhood. We gave them the brown color from the roof tiles, that was there already, and then we added that on the facade. So that's the story. And I'd like to move on to the Netherlands, which is a similar project. It's also 7 houses in Eindhoven, where I just started as a professor at the university. And it was an interesting example of how projects are happening in the Netherlands. So this was a competition between developers. Every developer selects one or two architects to make a proposal together that has to be presented to the city, to the neighborhood. It also has a financial component. There's a minimum offer for the land, but it also has a quality component. So this, and in the end, together with how the neighborhood, the ideas of the neighborhood, so they can say, well, this one we like more, this one we like less. So everybody has a kind of collective decision-making process, and in the end, we were the lucky ones, and we won this pitch. But you have to invest a lot with the developer, in this case, a local developer. In Eindhoven is, you see there, you maybe have heard about PSV. That's the stadium, Philips, but for the rest, it's a big village in Eindhoven. It is very cozy. It's more or less from the south of the Netherlands. It's the Catholic part. It's sort of the carnival. So it's a nice place to hang out, but it's not completely different as Rotterdam or Amsterdam. But it's developing fast because they have a lot of tech companies working from there, and ASML maybe someone you heard about. But doesn't look fantastic. If you look, this is the site over here. There are some former municipal buildings. It's not really beautiful, but it is somehow considered as a place that is good to live. And this is my statistic, kind of guilty pleasure again. So I look sometimes at this Numbeo site. So this is, if you like, this is an interesting site. You can look all kind of data about cities and houses and development. And there's also a component called quality of life, the quality of life index. So in 2018, when we were working on this competition, I was checking it, and to my surprise, Eindhoven was number one on the list. And come on, how can that be possible? Yeah? This is just Eindhoven. What are you talking about? But it had to do with, you see, the quality of life index. It's a mixture. They make this kind of statistic formula. So the quality of life index is based on purchasing power. So what can you get for your money? Pollution index. Well, the price for the house price income ratio. So if you have, sometimes the prices are too high for the income. So this gap is too big. Then it's not good. But if it's lower, it's better. Cost of living. Okay. Safety, healthcare, traffic commute time index, and the climate. So all these kind of things are put in a fantastic formula. I love these kind of things, and then you get a number, and then Eindhoven came up as the winner. So this was 2018, and then for the lecture today, I said, okay, maybe I should check it 2025 again. So here we go. And to my surprise, it was really strange. So Eindhoven is now number 2, but then the first numbers are all Dutch. So the first 5 numbers. So I think, whoa. So and I don't really trust the number in the Numbeo site anymore, but. You see that I put some other ones. Madrid is on 35. I have Berlin 45. Tirana as the last one. Okay, so what is? I didn't really understand it that good. So I looked a little bit of what are these numbers then meaning, and he's saying it's good to look at Madrid. So what's the main difference between Madrid and the Dutch cities? And it deals with the purchasing power, the cost of living, and the property income ratio. So basically, the salaries are too low for the cost of the housings in Madrid. That is big. Of course, the other ones are not that different. But this is make Madrid drop on the. So you have a bigger problem than we have with the houses. So tough. Okay, that we know that. But Eindhoven is still. I was like, God, this is not exciting. It's not beautiful. And the quality of life is, of course, more than purchasing power, safety, health, and all this traffic commute index. So it's just a limited view to the quality of life, if you ask me, but nevertheless, it's nice to look at. So here you see cozy Eindhoven. Before we started, parking area, it was a kind of connection between the outline of the city to the center. And what we did is we tried to fill in the puzzle, try to make connections, to have these new plots for the buildings. And it is a bit of an organic, an older part of the city. Although there was a lot of war damage, so that means you don't see that much anymore. That means that this was the patchwork that we created out of the connections in the city. Some neighborhood plazas, a little pocket parks, and a couple of plots for buildings, and some of these buildings are existing ones. And this is then the ground floor that we made out of it. You have one collective parking. You see these couple of new buildings in pink. No, this is not completely true. The ground floor has some commercial spaces, and some of the apartments are on the ground floor as well. And near the main street on the right, you have some co-working spaces. So these are the things. So what we did as well in terms of the section, in order to have this density on the spot, we said, okay, let's follow this rule. We like this system a lot, that you have an idea with the width of the street and the height of the building, so that the streets are somehow lit. In the Netherlands, that is kind of nice. You don't need that much shadow. You don't have that much sun, especially in this time of the year. And if you have an irregular pattern, then you get a very strange and weird outcome for the volumes. So we really follow this strictly. We don't like to follow this consequently, so that there was a main road on the right that's a bit wider, and then suddenly we could make a semi-high-rise near the existing buildings. It was more narrow. The buildings would be more low. And this story, of course, that landed very well, because everybody said, well, this is really Eindhoven. This really comes from the ground up. It is really fitting into context. It has this nice combination from traditional to modern, which is something they liked a lot. They think, well, it's cozy and traditional in Eindhoven, but we're also super innovative. There's a design academy and lots of cool designers. And we have the tech industry, so we're all very modern as well. So, and somehow this landed on the good spot. And this trick we have done before. This is in Bordeaux. Quai de Quéry, a former industrial zone as well, where we made a master plan based on similar principles. And here we made a collective housing project with in a white color to reduce urban heating and have a nice collective green garden in the middle. And this principle we kind of optimized a little bit, made it slightly different. Here we added green on the roof and have solar panels. So that means you have the cozy streets, you have the high towers, but they're all in one kind of collective system. So here's the development that we did. So you have on one side you see a lot of green, on the northern side, and on the southern side you have the solar panels, which are then again collectively used. So you have maybe a certain house that has less, a different ratio between, like the tower, it's quite high, it has also a small roof, but another big building that's lower has a big roof, so the energy from the lower building can be used in the higher building. So it's kind of a collective project in that respect as well. Same for the green, same for the water. So that's the principle. So it is connected by parking. So it is, in one hand it's 7 buildings, but on the other hand it's one big building. Besides the green, we also added the gradient facade, which connected the historical older buildings with the modern building. So it was kind of darker, browner, and more rougher in the older part, and smoother and lighter in the top. So each building is following this rule. So the bigger the building, the smoother and the lighter the facade. So this is the former police station that we transformed. Then you see behind the extension, that's where it's used for studios, for small apartments. And this is the second building, etc., etc. So they're all, every building has a different profile. So the ones before I showed it, these are the compact units, the small studios. The third building is social housing. The fourth building is mid-rental. Then you have the 2 high-rises that are more expensive, rental and a sales apartment. So for every category there is something, and there's one super expensive apartment we think it's probably going to be bought by some soccer player, which we don't know. But this apartment is, they want to finish it first, but it actually helps to pay for the smaller and cheaper apartments. So this is all part of this whole balance. Some collective small spaces in the middle, the new route, which is a little bit more slowed down. And this is the overview of the project in Eindhoven. And it has this weird collective spaces on the roof for kind of roof gardens and meetings. And on the higher ones, it's a private one, but it's sort of pays then for some other spaces. Some pictures on construction we're finishing next year. So here you see a little overview from the crane operator. He's a fan of the project, and he posts all kind of pictures on LinkedIn. So crane view, some more crane views. And here you see as well that we spend a lot of time on the how to get good green roofs. With the steepness of the roof, it was quite tricky, that it would not slide down. We have this sort of cozy traditional architecture that is linked to the existing buildings. This is the social housing block with the little alleys, and you see behind the other apartments that are still being built. Next door is the graveyard, and this is the main street, and this is the view from the city. I like to, if you have time, yes. We started a bit later. Some more about vertical ensembles, so how to live together in a building, in a vertical building. One of our little projects in Rotterdam is a small roof extension. And it's for a family that didn't want to move out of the city, but the only way was up. So they created an extension of the house with the bedrooms for the children on top of their company, and it gained a lot of attention because it was also remarkable and a model that we all kind of liked. So you have your house and you make your holiday house on top of your own house, and this is what it looked like and felt like. And the building would be invisible when the weather is great, and the blue sky is the same. When the weather is grey, the building is kind of lighting up the sky of Rotterdam. And this idea of living in the city and having the feeling that you live on the countryside was the inspiration for the project we are doing in Uruguay, Montevideo. So you have the quality of a freestanding house with a garden or a balcony near the park, or near the nature, but actually you're in the middle of the city. So that would be nice, right? So this is what many people are longing for. So this is we developed this principle in an infill situation in Biarritz, Montevideo, a neighborhood just off the center, but very close to the river or ocean, how you call it, Rio Plata. And it was for us an interesting. Yeah, it's a really nice place, Montevideo. It has these green spaces. It has also high density urban qualities. Reminds a bit of Madrid here and there. And this is the location. Near the park, one of the last plots that was empty, also because of the sun orientation, but it has this really nice location near the sea, and we thought it would be interesting to test if we could work out this idea of the city villas with the gardens in the sky. So here you see the corner plots. You could basically build something like this. This was allowed, and then with balconies and bay windows. So we followed that more or less, but we also realized that would mean that was the difficulty of the plot. You have a large dark zone. That would not be easy for the layout of the apartments. So we asked to find out, could we try it slightly different? So instead of this, we could make a courtyard, a mini courtyard that introduced light in the middle, but that means that we had to go up higher. That could create a vertical shaft, which could be like a green shaft through the building, and then it could lead to a more airy block, like with Celsius in here in Madrid, but in a different way. So here's the base volume, and we said, okay, we like to extend it a bit. We take out the square meters, we put them on top, and we go more or less to the top of the lift boxes from the neighboring buildings, outside of the zoning, but still we think modest in a certain way, and this we presented to the city. So we have the collective sky gardens. Everybody has a nice balcony. It has a more airy block. It sort of matches with the neighborhood, but it's not officially 100% in the zoning law. And this was then luckily enough accepted by the city, even though it was, but it's less square meters that you could build. So it's 400 square meters less than maximum allowed. Here is the ground floor with a nice restaurant and commercial space, gym for the residents, and this is how it looks. Looking up, and you have more or less 3 apartments per floor. Sometimes you have, and all of them has a window. They're also the ones that are more in the difficult part. They have a look outside through the halls of the collective gardens. So here you see some. I go quickly, but you can look it up on the website. So here you see the results. So you have basically we could make 8,000. We presented a scheme which is slightly less, but slightly higher, with a little bit more air and more quality. and this was approved, so we're on site at the moment. And we took some of the inspiration from the neighboring buildings, and in a couple of years you will see the result. Another urban tower that is in a different part of the world, but they deal with similar issues. Like they also have the issue of loneliness, they also have the urban heating, there also is the issue of affordability, and how to make a nice neighborhood. We have some people work in our office from Taiwan, and this is, we do some work there since a few years, and it's a really nice collaboration. And this is a place called Taichung, which is in the middle of the country. Super dense, a place that I never heard about before, but it has this, it's a vibrant but super hot city, hot and humid. And this is not getting better, so the city decided to do something about it. So Taichung has a dream, and this was in the regulations of the new planning code, that you have to bring nature back into the city in some kind of way, and bring the people back together. And this led to a series of regulations that are tough. You have to follow them. So you have to bring green into the city. You have to have collective spaces, multi-level terraces, as they call them, shading wall panels. So these is a kind of guidebook. It led to some not too nice buildings, but the ideas are very good. And we took this very seriously. Said, how can we interpret this in the best possible way to create a green and happy city? That's what we all would like. So the Kucha, that's the name of the plot. The building has to be demolished because of the differences in earthquake regulations. So there's many buildings that are not fulfilling the regulations of the new regulations for earthquakes, and there were some terrible accidents with recent earthquakes where buildings would topple over. So many of these buildings are being redeveloped, and transformation is then not a possibility. But this is the ambition. Bring the people together, bring nature together, but also create, that was our client idea, of course, an iconic tower, and that's what we got into the picture. And they could say, okay, this is the new standard. We like to make a building that is really attractive, because the buildings that were built in the regulations were not that attractive. Here you see the typical Taiwanese streetscape. The trees are protected, but you see there are not that many, but it's a lively and bustling neighborhood. That's the building. That is transforming is not possible. So what to do? So this is the potential of the site. That's the density you could make. It's a very straightforward commission. Apartments, some commercial on the floor, but then following this in the regulation, that means we have to have commercial at the collective spaces. This is a given. It's not because we like it, but you have to do it. Communal terraces, accessible rooftop, make an attractive plinth, then having the private green spaces, the balconies, and adding green on the facade. Part of as well how you keep that alive, so they're also very tough on the maintenance, having a green rooftop, and this could be the result. In a way, it's inspired by a project we did with Vicente Guayart in Sociopolis in Valencia a long time ago, that almost started construction, and then the crisis came, then it was over. And it was in a way as well a Spanish touch, because it has the trencadis technique. So here you see that first idea. There's a small parking, the lobby and the cafe, everybody has a nice balcony, and there's a couple of different recipes for that. So you have the mini balconies that are just plants, a small balcony where you can sit with a bit of green, and you have then the bigger balconies that are collective, they're accessible via the corridor. So here you see them. And every number of floors you have to have a communal balcony. You have two types, a big one and a small one, then you have the planters and the private balconies. They could go around the corner. So we developed a catalog of the balconies, added them to the facade, and this has now got planning permissions, and we're building a mock-up for the city and developing a gardening concept for the plants. And let's see how it works. So hopefully this will be the result. We have to see that in a couple of years, but that's the intention. And here as well we use the white because of the urban heat effect. The white building reflects the heat, doesn't absorb it, and makes the city less hot, and the plants as well. one more to go. I think is the Sax in Rotterdam, a project that we've been working on for 8 years, and it also shows a bit the difficulty of making housing in the Netherlands. It's really on a great spot. So it's maybe if you've been to Rotterdam, they have the Erasmus Bridge that developed a new neighborhood on the south bank of the Rotterdam, where used to be a lot of harbor activities. And at the this took 30 years. When we started our office, this was kind of an empty spot, but now it's becoming a really nice place. There also is a new museum by Mad Architects. It's being built over there, but it has this history of let's say, migration as well, because this was the place where the boats from Europe went to America. So this is very and trading. So it has this marine link, and the harbor moved out. Some buildings were kept. The bridge was developed, and then it became sort of the new high-rise zone for Rotterdam. And Rotterdam is the high-rise city of the Netherlands. So here the first experiments were done with high-rises. Master plan, this is the concept. So you have this small and narrow jetty. It's the densest place in the Netherlands, because it has, you have of course the water around it, but it is really full of towers, and there's more coming. So you have Rotterdam is developing quite a lot. You see a lot of construction. It still is an issue of housing, but you see that this is really high density apartments. Not all of them are fancy, but it is a mixed neighborhood. Some nice examples of a combination of old and new. The floating office over there. There will be a new park in the water. The Museum of Mad is around the corner. So it is really a beautiful spot, and in a way a success, but it took 30 years to develop it. And we were selected for a competition for one of the last residential tower on the pier. It was a concept that was developed by our client. They wanted to connect two plots in one and create a bridge between it. And they dubbed it the Sax. This is the name they gave to it. And we thought it would be an interesting typology, because there were towers with a plinth, type A. There was the famous Rotterdam building from OMA. It's in a way vertical city. It has offices, hotel, and apartments. It's also a super fat block, a really nice typology. And we thought it would be interesting to make on something in between. In the beginning, part of the project was a hotel that was in the Golden Bar in the middle. That was taken out, but you could see it was a small plot with a lot of apartments. The ambitions, they had super high ambitions. They wanted to do the best high-rise of the world. It should be amazing. It should be fast to build. It has a mixed use, but rational. So they wanted everything, and that's why there was this tough competition. And we thought, okay, the buildings on the pier, they are done by different architects. That was one of the conditions. None of the architects in the competition had built a tower in Rotterdam. There are some nice examples of different architects. Sisa did one, Renzo Piano, Foster, Meccano. So they all did their own little beautiful thing, or not that little. Each tower had their own facade. We thought, okay, which one is missing? So we have to do something that is not there. So we came, okay, silver and gold, it's not there. It actually happens to be the colors of the saxophone. So that's why we thought this could be a theme. And by connecting the two towers like this, not like the configuration in the program, but melting them together into one kind of movement, the shape was there. So that was the story. And it's about 180 meters high, and it has this bridge. In the beginning it was hotel, but it now is special apartments. Collective roof deck, about 100 meters high. Some pocket park between the towers. There's different living rooms for the residents, and on the ground floor it's public amenities. And you could say that the city, of course, was used to high-rises. They have a lot of experience in Rotterdam, and they said, the first generation, they were okay, but we also saw a lot of problems on the ground floor. So the streetscape was not good. So they were really important was the eye line. So there were, of course, the skyline is nice, but for them the eye line was even more important. So what do I see on ground level? What do I see when I walk past the building? And this was on a really small plot. So you can see the Markthal was a similar scale building. And this is about a FAR of 7.5, and the Sax is about 5 times denser on a smaller plot. So that was one of the challenges. We had to organize the parking. It was an existing entrance to the garage next door. There were a lot of demands on what had to be visible on the ground floor. There were structural issues. Everybody wanted to have something, and then it was really a nightmare. But we managed to pull it off. I give you a little bit of a history. So here's the collection of materials on the pier. And we also wanted to combine that with the Rotterdam atmosphere. So Rotterdam has many buildings from the post-war, because the center was bombed. And in the post-war buildings, the balconies are not on the back side, on the courtyard, but they're also on the front side, depending on it. There's the functionalist architecture. If you have a sun orientation, it's on the street, you make a balcony. But this was not there before in let's say, buildings from the 19th century. So this is typical for Rotterdam, I think. When you walk around, you see balconies, people sitting on balconies. When you go to Amsterdam or other cities, we don't see that. Living on a beautiful spot, we thought it would be a nice combination not to have a balcony, but also have a bay window. So the combination of the bay window and the balcony, that was for us the key spot, that you can have a better view and you have an outdoor space. So that was the additional, let's say, what we could bring to the table. Because if you make a window, you have a great view, everybody likes that, that's easy. But that was the topic, so we have an efficient building, and then we add this facade of balconies and bay windows, and create this beautiful and green, nice community. Yeah, that was the story. That's how the project looked when we won the competition against architect Big and German architect Magnus Kaminetz. Everybody said, yeah, great, let's go for it. But then crisis, COVID, construction price went up, whatever. All the things that could go wrong went wrong, basically. Hotel markets collapsed. So this project was almost dead. But step by step, we managed to optimize it. It was not easy. Over here you see the optimization of the facade. The building got a bit higher. Then the contractor came in and said, you have to make it a bit more easy to build. We wanted to make a sort of efficient construction method. So then the final result nevertheless is different, but I think still it has this more efficient construction method. It has much more apartments. So we started with 450 and now it's 918. There's no hotel, but it has studios, it has, let's say, let me see, 80% is for the rental market and 50% of the building is affordable rent. So that was in the demand of the city. During this whole process, they said, okay, you can make a building higher, but you have to make more affordable rent. Then you are allowed to make more square meters. So all these kind of things took time, and but we just reached an agreement, and we started the permission, which was again a lot of people complaining. That took another half year, 1.5 years of people that lived next door and said, not in my backyard, etc. So here you see the development of the project. It's still the same, but it's different. I think it's somehow, and it shows in a way the movement, the sign of the times that happened from the competition to the next stage. So here you see the results, and you still have the bay window, but it's slightly different, and the balcony. And you have this combination of different apartments with a certain neighborhood feeling, but it's a little bit less crazy. Here are some pictures of that. We have the beam and the roof deck. We have special apartments in the middle. These are more the high-end apartments in the beam. And the mass of the building is then is sold to pension fund. And this is how it looks on the ground floor. Super important and complicated to solve was the whole plinth, how the building would land. Having the access to the garage. They wanted a lot of bicycles, so there's like almost 3,000 bicycle stands, but less parking. So the city accepted lower parking ratio, but with more bicycles. So this was you have the incredible bicycle floor, and we also organized a mechanical parking robot. For the residents. So there's a public parking below, and there's a residential parking where you park your car downstairs, and then it goes into the machine. Getting that permit was also terrible, because they have electric cars. What happens when the electric car gets on fire, etc. All these issues we had to settle, but it somehow worked out. Here you see the little neighborhood square between the towers. with a living room, collective spaces. There are not a lot of collective spaces. I think personally I would have liked to have more, but this was kind of the balance, the affordability in the sense from making the project work. But we have on top, we have this large roof deck with a small pavilion, and this is, I think, quite a remarkable feat that you have from the 100 meter. But again, this was not public, so this is the sacrifice we have to give. In the original design, it was a public roof deck. And the result is there in Rotterdam. In a couple of, it takes 4 years to build. So in 2030, will be finished, 4.5 years. And the construction started last month. So, to be continued, do we have time? I have one more? Okay, I have one more because I like to show, this was the secret project. And it's linked to the Master of Collective Housing. I will show the project in India. 5 years ago we did a workshop, Ignacio and me. One of the participants was Prajakta Gavde. She was a student from India and she joined our office. We didn't have that much work in India at the time, but after 5 years and a lot of experience, now she's the project architect of the project in India that I'd like to show you. It's called Future Towers. Before I showed the project, I have to give a little bit of a history. We started this project because we thought it was interesting to work on large-scale buildings in the developing world, because they are the least published size of architectural projects. The most square meters are built by buildings that never get published, and most publications they show small projects like little villas or beautiful interiors. So that will be interesting. And these projects are in India. They're built in so-called townships. They're not the same as the Indian or the South African township, but they're basically little cities that are being built by developers that are plugged into the public system of the city. In this case, in Pune. Our first meeting was with this guy, Mr. Deshpande. He was the entrepreneur. He developed the city. He's super proud. Now it's his son is working with us on the second edition of the building. What was cool to see is that they started with the park. So they didn't start with the buildings, but they started with green space. And then the park is growing, it's super nice now, and there's a lot of people living around it. We were asked to develop a master plan for the spine, the so-called pipeline road. You see there's a lot of different typologies, some are low-rise, some are high-rise. And this appendix is a sort of shopping mall, and there you enter. It's not 100% gated, but it is a bit controlled. And it is offered, it's super successful because it offers a sort of more relaxed lifestyle than the chaotic lifestyle in the normal city of Pune. So it was a height limit of 100, it's super high density. We tested out typical Indian towers, and that would mean that we had to make 60 towers in the master plan. And we thought it would be easier to do a system like this with less towers, less cores, which are expensive and yeah, so it's not easy. So we said that we base this grid on the fire escape rules. So the biggest distance between the cores is 30, so 2 times 30 is 60. So that was the grid. And out of this grid we created a system of towers. We then started looking into Indian housing, which is very specific. They want natural ventilation in every room, also in the toilet. So that if you put all these for a normal apartment next to each other, you would need a very long facade, 11 meters. So you have typical units, and you have the living room, the bedroom, the bathroom, everybody needs a window. But then if you flip it, then you have a compact unit with this big shaft, and the shaft is then an outdoor facade without a view. So this was the typical Indian recipe. There's no mechanical ventilation in the building, but everybody has its own little air conditioning. It's also a kind of simplification. And there were very specific rules about how the layouts had to be done, so I won't bother you too much with this. But we created this system where our client could basically plug and play with the units as they liked it, so maybe a bit bigger units to the park, smaller units to the roads. But that led to a typology where you would have a mixture of units on one corridor, where most Indian houses have one typology per tower. So it would already be a huge difference. And then on the corners we would have large panorama terrace roof decks. So that's the typical floor plan. This building you might have seen. It's been built about 10 years ago. It has a lot of collective spaces in the middle, so it is really a vertical city. Every little pocket garden has a theme, so you have for girls, for boys, for younger, for older, for golf, for coffee, for tea, for yoga, whatever you like, it's all there. And because there are so many units, so many functions could be added. So it is a huge building, but it also has a big swimming pool of 50 meters long. It has all kind of tennis courts, so all the luxury stuff you like in an affordable, relatively affordable housing. So this is mid-income housing. Construction costs were $250 per square meter at the time. So there was only one recipe for the facade. It was just stucco, cement stucco. This was the sales site. The apartments were for sale. Typical floor plans and so-called terrace apartments. Here you see when the building was opened, there were small celebrations for the gods, so to say. Get good luck. So this is a standard apartment. Here you have one of the terrace apartments, really large, lofty apartment with voids. So this was all in one building, and there you see the results. So things went well, kind of nice, but also was difficult in India to build the second stage of the project. We were commissioned to do a study on the building, and the idea that was necessary was to chop the building because the length, there was a new regulation, the length of the building defined the distance to the neighbors. So a slab was bad, a tower was good. So we divided the idea, we chopped it up into towers. Then nothing happened. We got a call again from the Sun, like, could you start again? We like to have a new idea. We would like to make a second version of the building. It's more or less the same, but it should be different. Of course, new generation. But we like to have some ideas that from the previous building, like the collective spaces, but they have to be a little bit bigger. We don't want a roof terrace anymore, but we have to have something on the plinth because the parking, it doesn't look nice. So that was how it started. In the meantime, the whole development was growing. It was really an urban density. It was like 10,000 people are living there in this development. So we thought, okay, let's make this tower, this combining of this old and new. We call it the weaving tower, having this kind of almost like a weaving of spaces, a weaving of functions, based on the baskets strategy. But again, make it super efficient. That was our client is a commercial client, but also they have a certain spiritual touch. But it has to work. It has to fit to all the regulations. It has to fit to the market. We knew a little bit how it worked, but it was still an exciting challenge. And for this, it was super good that we had Payakta on board, who was trained here. So we have, you could see that it has many ideas of previous projects, like the Seleucia building or the Mirador, also the previous Indian example. But it's a rationalized version. It's 100,000 square meters again, excluding the parking. I'll explain you a little bit how it's built up. So it's standing again next to the park and has this kind of collective skyline of the whole neighborhood. So here's it's not, we start construction next year, but here you see the montage of the two buildings. The urban side, so to say, the pipeline streets, more commercial on the ground floor. So this was one demand from them. And on the park side, they wanted a more activated plinth, so there would be residential on the park side in the form of townhouses. It's in the red thing. Then again, they call this the amenity deck, the E-deck, where all the collective outdoor spaces are. These are the park apartments. They are more replace the terraces on the previous building. So these are more the high-end units with quite the 300 square meters or so with luxury for a luxury part of the building. But the bulk should be, you have this efficient collection of standard units built on this zigzag weaving pattern. And here we optimized it by having all the standard floor plans that were more or less the same as in the previous building. And we pre-combined them into modules, so these are kind of optimal combinations of 3 units next to the core. And these modules became groups on certain spots. So these were the building blocks that we developed piece by piece, and with each building blocks, a bit like Lego, we put the building together. So here you have all the plans, and you see there are Indian floor plans again, how you come into the building. They don't like corridors, you have to have an efficient organization with, and the bedrooms should be more apart, every a certain amount of bathrooms and little prayer corners, etc. Ventilation issues, blah, blah, blah. These are combined into groups, the modules into groups, and with these elements, we click them together into the facade, into the system. So this is how we optimize the structure, all the pipes, and in a way, it's sort of an improved version of the previous project. What we improved as well was the scale of the outdoor spaces in between. They became much bigger. And here you see again the mix. In the end, a bit less units, but overall, again, a huge building. And again, with a lot of additional amenities that you would normally have not in a collective housing project. So it has the padel, it has the pool, it has the sand pit, it has the whatever you name it, it has it. These are on the outdoor deck and on the first floors in the podium and on the tower, the base of the tower. Some ideas for the gardens. We designed them a little bit more. So basically, we have four layouts that will be developed into the project. So everybody has have a kind of sub-neighborhood into the building, and this is the story. Okay, finally, last slide. So to end with what I started with, how can we? These are I don't have the recipe. I showed you some ideas. This is a poster that was made by Sanne van Manen. She used to work for us. She also was part of the booklet that is now on our website. And she started to become a more activistic office. So she left us, and she started working on her platform Woonopgave, platform for the construction of houses. Try to find ways to fix the housing crisis. So these are some rules and some ideas. Fix housing. And the last one is number 10. Make public housing great again. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. We go for some questions. I need one micro, but is there anybody who wants to ask? Maybe someone can you make it very loud, and in the meantime, I go for the micro. Yes.
I wanted to ask, how do you come up with these ideas of, like, for example, the Indian project, placing the hexagon shape, the hexagon grid on that dot, or how do you come up in, like, Eindhoven, how do you come up with this, like, how do you always come up with this, I don't know.
Well, the hexagon was, of course, was a sort of idea to avoid all the cores, but it was indeed like we tested many more. But this was clear that this was really smart in optimizing the housing and make it more efficient. And they were surprised with the whole building, but they liked the principle of the grid and the hexagon, and that's why we won the competition. Yeah. And of course, they were open-minded to say, well, we don't look for standard solutions, but they really saw the benefit of it, that this, because the lifts are, of course, the most expensive part, especially when the construction costs are so low. The machines, the lifts, they have to come from Otis or somebody. They have to be, so they were the most important parts of the construction. So that would also save them also a lot of money. Yeah. And in Eindhoven, we have actually, I can show you a series of projects throughout the years that all work with this sun cuts and chopping. So this is a recipe we have been playing with through the history of the office. And sometimes it works well in context, and sometimes we shouldn't do always the same, of course. But in this case, it somehow landed well, because there were already buildings with pitched roofs standing there, were part of the project. And by continuing with this, creating strange, more modern pitched roofs, it fits in the story of the city that they say, well, we want to connect traditional with the modern. So that's and then okay, you decide to go for it, and then you have to follow it. Try to design it as consequently as possible. Yeah. Yeah. But I tell it like an easy way, but of course it's not. The design process goes like this. Yeah. Can you repeat? Maybe.
That you always come up with systematic answers to the problem. I think that's really
Yeah,
like
well, you have to be
amazing.
systematic to build something. That's what maybe we learned in the time that in order to get, you cannot realize everything. So you have to make you have to kill, in a way, kill your darlings, but also make your choices. Or if we don't do it in a rational way, we lose other things. So in this case, we could make. The Eindhoven project is quite special because it has a lot of different apartments, and so that's not very efficient. The client was also proud about Eindhoven. So they're a local builder, a local developer, and they said this is. They accepted a smaller profit for this building, this project, but they compensated maybe on other projects. So we were lucky with that. But yeah, and it has the green roofs, it has the solar. So this was a lot of pushing. Yeah.
My question is, thinking about the project in Rotterdam, the tower. At the beginning, you had a facade that had multiple like pockets, and it was giving something else to the people that would inhabit those places. But then, because of like developers and so on, it changed. My question is, when do you say no? If there is a moment where you say, okay,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, this took 8 years. So yeah, you can if you would have said this, like you said, well, this is what we're going to do, and you would have told me in the beginning, it's like, come on, no way. But it is also going in small steps. And on the other hand, this is a building on a location that is like an amazing location. And so it was like this thing, yeah, do we give it up? And then basically you fail, nothing gets built, or whatever, somebody else is doing something without your name. So everybody felt like, no, we really want to have this, make this happen. So this whole idea, like we have these two towers, to connect it, you have the bar in the middle. That's the story. And then of course, if you look at the facade, it is less crazy and exciting. But that was part of economic development. I think in the beginning of the project, most apartments were for sale, and now most apartments are for rent. The rents are not extremely high, so that means consequences for. There was a big investor saying, okay, I want to take the whole tower because I like the building. So that was a luck as well. So they said, investor for a pension fund. They invest into buildings, and well, they have their requirements. One of the requirements was that it had to be built as fast as possible. Then the contractor said, well, what if you want this kind of wavy facade can only work on two facades. You have to make the other one straight, because otherwise we hoist up our construction stuff. We cannot build it anymore as fast as we like. It still takes long, but so all these kind of things come together. But in the end, I didn't put that slide in. You see a lot of people on the stage, and I'm also there. Everybody's super happy and excited that is happening. But yeah, sometimes it's a struggle, and this is in a way you could see the steel prices would go up crazily. The wages for the construction workers from 1 year to the next year, they went up 10% because of inflation. We're in Ukraine, COVID. All these kind of things came up, and a lot of projects stopped. This one was also almost dead, and then everybody said, yeah, let's go for it. And for us it was not easy as well, because we had to work with a contractor who is really, these guys are tough, and they know what they're doing. They have built a lot of high-rises. We didn't do that much high-rises, so their will is the law, so to say. So you have to accept that as well. But so that's working in the professional practice as well. Yeah. Yeah.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. And I wanted to ask, how does environmental sustainability fit into the whole process? Does it always come from your part? Are some clients interested, or is it like a organic result of everything?
Yeah, it's super important, and you see that every year, especially in the Netherlands, these demands are becoming, I would say, more ambitious. That's very good. But it's so I didn't put a project in Amsterdam, and they're really have high demand. So you have to be energy neutral. So That means, and plus you have to have a biofactor, CO2 factor for the construction. That means you have to basically build in wood. At least half of the building should be in wood. These regulations will increase. So in the next 5 years, what you do now would not work in 5 years. So in 5 years, basically you should build completely in wood. Contractors are still not able to handle this so well. But that's so. This is and sometimes you have to make a small compromise. But so yeah, therefore we have solar facades, not on the roof but all on the facades, because otherwise it doesn't work. So that is becoming, I would say, this whole issue of the making it Paris-proof is one thing, but you see that the improvement of the Paris-proof regulations in Europe will have an enormous effect on the construction. And so the project that I showed here, the last one, the SAX, is not very sustainable from that point of view. But on the other hand, it offers more than 900 apartments in the center of the city. Is where the housing crisis also is asking for. So people then say, oh yeah, okay, we didn't succeed everything, but we got, and maybe you could say, well, maybe in the urban planning, you say maybe we shouldn't make 150 meter high, 180 meter high rises anymore. In the Netherlands, where we need super deep foundations, like 80 meter deep piles going to the sand layer, the Indian project is much better because they don't have hardly have a basement. They don't have that much pipes. They have less insulation, of course. All the air conditioning are still not. But we made a comparison, and actually, surprisingly, the Indian projects came up pretty good, without wood still, but still compared to the one that yeah. So this is what we try to do as well. I didn't explain it too much. We are focused on housing, mostly on that part. But yeah, it's totally important what you mentioned. This is it's a big puzzle. Yeah.
Oh, more questions. I was going to close, but if you don't mind, a couple of questions.
Sure, I'm here.
Hi, so I'm coming back to the example that I've given to India.
Yeah.
So
From India?
yes. So I know the issues there and few certain things, like the things that you're talking about, like the ingredients,
Yeah.
which are the typological this thing.
Yeah.
The moral is fixed already. You don't really have to design, because there are locations that are put, because that is one of the biggest issues like architects face in doing this design. So did you also face the same issues where it is already fixed and you really have to play with how it looks from the outside, because in the name of ventilation or in the name of religion where something things are already fixed with the real estate, the commercial thing the owner comes off with. This is one question I had. To the extension of it,
Yeah.
you are somebody who uses these strong colors. You're quite bold to use these strong colors or all over, but in this project you tend to use white. Is it by choice or you're forced to do it?
Yeah, well, thinking for the last one, there was no money except for paint. So the color is easy. Just gonna, and then we made a couple of versions where we made wood. That was in the first phase as well, and that was taken out. And we also didn't have the control. So at a certain moment, they just asked somebody, "Hey, can you make a nice Spider-Man on the wall?" And they painted the Spider-Man on the wall. But then we thought, okay, let it go, and maybe somebody else will paint another art piece on top of it in a couple of years. So there we used the color, and in this case they wanted a bit better materials, so there's a little bit more money now. So now we hopefully can have the wooden decks, and we have a bit more green in the building, and also the construction, the plinth will be a bit more high-end, so to say, with natural stone. But the base of the building will probably be the same. We have a kind of grey stucco. And if you make it white in India, it gets grey anyway. So after, that's we thought, okay, if you make it grey, if it gets a bit dirty, it's a bit darker grey. Which and somebody I liked it, but from afar you see the silhouette. And the nickname of the building is the Big Elephant. I think it's a kind of nice nickname. But about the floor plans, yes. We have the team from the planning team from the clients. This is the same planning team, except now the son is in charge, not the father. But these guys are like super experienced. One is from a pensioned army colonel. They know their shit, so to say. But they're also super conservative. They like, oh, this is how it should be. It's almost like the 1 BHK, the 1.5 BHK, 2 BHK. So it's all this kind of things which are on the market, and they're basically the same floor plans. And it's almost like buying a car. Yeah, it has a sort of the cars all basically look the same, but it has a little bit small differences. But they're true. But this is the marketing thing. They're going to sell these apartments, and people know exactly when I have a 2 BSK or a 2.5 bedroom hall kitchen. That's the name of it. And this is exactly organized how big it has to be, how much square feet. So you hardly can improve that. They optimize it to the perfection, and if you do something else, it's less efficient. Period. So we're not going to do it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for very much for the lecture. It was very nice. And my question is, talking about this agenda, and at the beginning we mentioned about the housing crisis worldwide, and you also mentioned a lot that you work with a lot of like commercial developers. How do you manage to mix the economical side of architecture with affordability?
Yeah. Well, in every project there's a different dynamic. Yeah? So I think everybody understands the housing crisis. That there are different ways to fix it from different perspectives. So what is important I realize it's very important is that the city planning office and the regulations what they want. So if they say, look, you can build this building over here, but you have to have a mixture of price range. That's stone hard. In the beginning, it's in Amsterdam very strict. They want to have 40% social housing, 40% mid-range, 20% free market. Expensive rent or expensive market price, which means expensive. So and the developers say, come on, 20%, I cannot pay for the 40% social. I'm losing money on the social. So it's a game, and then they find out, okay, can I do this or doesn't fit? So but of course it's super important to say, okay, look, we want to have a mixture. It's easy to build a tower with expensive apartments; they will be sold as well. But we don't want it. We want to have the mixture in the neighborhoods. Different type of people should be able to live here. And if you keep on repeating that, people start, okay, it's now everybody knows, everybody accepts, and new solutions come up with construction methods which are more efficient. So this is happening, but it takes just energy to shift the mindset of many people. Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, other projects you cannot realize everything in each project. Yeah. Yeah.
We stop it here. Thank you, Jakob, for your lecture. Thank you all for your visit, and see you next week on Thursday for the next lecture.